There we go. Welcome, everyone. I put on some captions below, and you can see that we also have ASL interpreters here with us today. I am Heather Zink. I am the Senior Director for Learning Design at Graduate School USA. On the screen, you will see a QR code that you can take out your trusty little phone and pop up there and scan that, and that will give you a handout that I'll be going through to help you take some notes, just really kind of organize your thoughts a little bit. I also will quickly post the link in the chat if that is easier for you. Paste. There we go. So that you all have that to access as we're going through today. I presented this session at TOC, and this was my first year at TOC. It was at the Annual Institute, and it was an amazing experience to connect with other training professionals within the federal government. At graduate school, we offer training, and a lot of you are our clients. And so I was happy to attend and really talk through just how we manage our training, how we evaluate our training courses, and share this course quality matrix with you all. This session is going to be interactive in terms of I've got some questions where I'm going to use a tool called Slido throughout the session. And so I'm going to put that up there first. There we go. Our first question, to really get a better understanding, it looks like from the chat that we are geographically distributed across the US right now. I would love for you to either type in your computer slido.com and join at that number, or scan the QR code and it will pop up on your phone. But I would love to know how many years you have been involved with the TOC, to really understand, are we looking at folks who are brand new to TOC? And even if you're not a member, of TOC, this was a publicly available webinar. And so just how many years you've been with the federal government, so that we can understand kind of who's in the room today, the virtual room. Let's see, how many folks do I have in our, we've got about 40 people here, and so about 7 have responded. So we'll give a little bit of time, spanning less than 1 year. About 4 to 10. Okay, perfect. Lots of newcomers, which is great. When I was at TOC in the springtime, there were a lot of folks, it was their first time. So I felt really relieved that I was not the only first time attendee there. If you have not attended the Annual Institute, please make sure that you put that on your calendar for next year. It was a fantastic opportunity to connect with other learning professionals, and I enjoyed myself. Just really, I do not have a background in the federal government. I come from a higher ed space. And as the Senior Director for Learning Design at Graduate School, I manage our team of learning designers and curriculum experts. And so I'm very familiar with building training, more so from a higher ed training capacity, training faculty, training students. But I didn't have a lot of background in the government training space until 2 years ago when I joined graduate school. And so TOC was a fantastic opening for that. So lots of newcomers here, but good to see that we've got some experience across the board. All right, I'm going to go ahead and shift us into any good learning session. What are we going to have? Learning goals, obviously. You are here today to learn about a course quality matrix. You were intrigued by the title of the session. You were intrigued by the fact that it was free, that it was TOC. But really our goals for today are to identify the challenges of you all as learning professionals in how you continue to update your training courses. Evaluation is a really key component, but I think that folks struggle with it because it seems like this afterthought. Maybe we're doing surveys to understand from a student perspective, but looking at the quality of your materials, the quality of your program from a variety of angles is really our goal today. I hope that you will walk away from today with a couple quality metrics, if you don't already have those, that you're using our time today to really take this information, think about how you can apply it back in your work to really a real world scenario. And so I have some time built into the session for you to reflect on these different components and utilize either that handout or your own note-taking tools. I use OneNote for everything. It is now my personal Google search of all notes that I've ever taken in the past. But whatever tool you use, I would invite you to make sure that you either have a pen and paper nearby, you have a digital note-taking space so that you can engage in the session in a way that you're going to take away something meaningful. And so let's really dig in. And this is your first opportunity to share with me the types of challenges that you are facing. As a learning professional today, especially within the federal space, there are an abundance of opportunities for training. We're looking to upskill in different types of ways, but we also face a lot of challenges. And I would like for you to share what those challenges are with the group so we can really set a foundation for what we're trying to accomplish with this course quality matrix. So what types of challenges are you facing in keeping your training curriculum up to date? This is an open-ended question, again, using Slido. And so I would love for you to share with me some of those challenges that you're facing. Give you a little time to sit and think. I know that silence is sometimes uncomfortable. There are no names that are going to pop up here. You're 100% anonymous. No one is going to judge you for the challenge that you put in here. It's really difficult to keep training curriculum up to date. There are lots of reasons for that. But I really want to help us set the tone for what is the problem that we're trying to solve for and how we can utilize different tools, share with each other on what it is that we're wanting to do. Joy, I see in the chat OneNote, use it all the time. Yes, I don't know what I would do without my OneNote tool. And for those who don't have a Microsoft account, Evernote is a free version that does something similar. So, all right, so we've got some folks popping in here. Let's see, knowing what's available. Yes, trying to keep your content relevant. We develop what our SMEs find important, and that's not well aligned with workforce needs as they would believe. I don't know who wrote that, but I mean, can we just like high five for a second with that? Trying to understand the needs of our institution, the sheer volume with a decentralized team of about 20 people. You've got 20 people, I have 7. And so like it is looking at how just the amount of work needed. You can see that. Changes to the content are happening faster than the training can be updated, you bet. And with low staffing, decreased budgets, okay, quote, it is how we do it. It isn't broken, so why revamp it? Oh, friend, yeah, if it's not broke, why should we fix it? Filling seats for in-person classes, I do think that's a challenge, and I would love to really dig into that a little bit later to understand benefits and drawbacks, right, to that in-person versus virtual. That's one of the things that we think about at graduate school too. How do we utilize that? What's the best way to accomplish the training course itself? Because we do have a lot of interest in in-person, but the attendance will not get there for us to be able to warrant it. Quickly changing policies, absolutely. Beginning phase of nailing down our auditor training program. It is a puzzle for sure. At the beginning phases of anything, it's going to be challenging. So you are definitely not alone there. Graduate school has some auditor training programs, and this is not a sales piece. That's not what I'm going to go to, but I know for a fact that the different aspects of the role of an auditor are so vast. And so trying to understand how do we start from beginning, middle to end is definitely something that our program directors think about a lot. Delayed approval process, leaders undervaluing training and organization learning. Yes, that is something. I attended the ATD annual conference in New Orleans 2 weeks ago, and that was the theme of the conversations that I was having. Undervaluing training and organizational learning. I don't know that there has been a big enough shift yet for in any field, not just federal or state government space, but really in any field, for the executive team to understand, or leadership team to understand, that the learning and development or training and organizational learning, whatever you want to call us, how valuable training can be in solving organizational challenges. And there's some lots of great articles and things out there. ATD is really leading in this space as well. I think that you'll find conversations around, I had some of them at the TOC conference, about making sure that you are talking about how training can help solve these problems. And again, that's why we're starting with the problem statement here. What types of challenges are y'all facing? So looks like a couple in the chat, lack of training expertise for in-house. That is definitely a challenge. And so trying to figure out, when do I partner outside versus coming in? Yep. And that global, hybrid, multicultural trainings. Friend, you just said a whole bunch of things that are absolutely a challenge in trying to address some of those needs. And so I appreciate y'all for taking time to share your challenges with us. I think some of the other pieces that we have talked about in other sessions that I have run similar to this, skills gaps. And I think that those were mentioned a little bit further down here, of just relevance and changes to content. Maybe what the SMEs think is important is maybe not always what's as important. Lawyers want an entire law on a slide, not using learning principles. Yes, the benefits of working with a subject matter expert to get them to understand how our brains learn is definitely a challenge that we all in the learning and development space can attend to. But skills gaps, right? We know that those exist, but that may not be something that is easily available to you, that you may not know of yet. There are other issues with it. We've talked about dynamic workforce changing needs. What about technology integration and AI? And you think that everyone thinks that AI is going to save the world, or maybe they're scared to death of it. And there's a middle ground there for us in this learning and development space. And so I'll be interested to see if, as we go throughout the session today, if that's something that is entering your world a little bit. And then I think one of the biggest things for me in terms of a training space is, and our role in the learning and development department, is how do we balance those short-term needs? Okay, we need to train on this immediately, versus that long-term goal. What are we trying to achieve? A competent workforce that is able to change and adapt and move with what's happening in the world. How do we balance that? And so I think that this course quality matrix, and why you came to the session today, is really going to help all you all in helping to really put some structure around it, and have words to share with your leadership team on why it's important to do this evaluation work, and really help you narrowly focus and help to focus your efforts as a learning professional. And so I see in the chat box, leadership does not want to purchase quality technology. That is across the board. Technology purchases have to be defended as to why do we need to utilize this. And there's a lot of background information to try to prove that. Not necessarily the topic of this webinar, but if you send me an email, I'm happy to talk through some of the things that I've done in the past in other roles about proving the value of technology, if it might help. But we've talked about our challenges. This is our agenda for today, to really look into the course quality matrix at GSUSA and how we evaluate which training programs we need to continue to offer, which ones we need to improve on, and how we need to do that. I'm going to break that down into some components of course quality, some of which you've thought about, others maybe not, so that you walk away from here with your own start to a quality matrix, and think about how you can start to implement that. And then I've kept the component that I had at the conference back in the springtime of feeling the love, how this particular topic of course evaluation and training program evaluation really helps you to feel the love of the Training Officers Consortium and what that does for you as a learning professional individually. So up on the screen right now, you are going to see, this is our course quality matrix. Friends, it is not the most high-tech thing you've ever seen in your life. This is an Excel document. I'm going to let that sit with you. This is a spreadsheet. That is how we include this information. This is a template to show you the components of the matrix. I have some slides later on in the presentation that will show you how we fill this in and what we look at. But this is our quality matrix. We look at, you can see here on the screen, I'll start to move my mouse a little bit, but these are our course domain and logistics, the type of course that we offer. This is basically the decision that we want to come to on an annual basis of, do we keep the course? Do we retire it? Do we refresh it? Those three components really help us to understand then what is the workload of the learning design team and where do we go with it next. Because we are a business and we are interested in making revenue to be able to stay in business, this is our open enrollment revenue from that course, or our on-site or contract revenue from a course. So we want to take that into account to say, are we actually making money on this course? Does it make sense for you all? Maybe it's just, are you seeing the attendance of these courses? Which one of your attendance is coming there if you're not selling training? And then these here, down at the end, are those actual quality elements. So we're going to walk through these different components we got there in just a moment, but I wanted you to see how it all plays together. And it's not overly complicated. It's just putting it into a system that's going to be easy to utilize. All right. And so how did we get here? How do we actually look at, and why did we find this need? Well, at graduate school specifically, we have a course library, over 300 courses. And as I mentioned to you, I started with graduate school about 2 years ago. And prior to me being in this senior director role, the learning design team was really spread out amongst our different product arms. And you may have that as well, where you're learning. I heard one person talk about a distributed team. When you have a distributed team, a lot of times their roles get very specific to whoever it is that they're supporting. So we have different domains of training that we offer: human resources, financial management, auditing, leadership and management training, to name just a few. And we had learning designers or instructional specialists reporting into each one of these areas. The problem with that is that while they are serving that area, not all of those domains are created equal, right? And you're probably seeing that if you have a distributed team. So what we did was pull the learning designers into, and the curriculum experts. And when I say curriculum experts, I mean in building that curriculum instruction, not the content expert, not the SME. Put those on one team. So now it's me with a team of 7. And we kind of have 2 different arms where we look at, we've got folks who refresh courses that are already built, and we have folks who build new courses or do complete overhauls of courses. And so that's how we spread out our work. But as you can imagine, with a course library of 300, where do we even start? And so this, for those of you who attended TOC, and I'm going to grab a web link for you just a second. This is Joe Urbanski, copied this for you, and I'll put it in our chat. There we go. But Joe has a framework for his total solutions group that talks about the experience development framework. And he talks about these different components. Let's make that a little bit bigger. We'll go in here. And when he talked about this during the keynote, it was the perfect introduction to this session I was about to run. And he mentioned that executives care about 1 and 2, and down here in maybe 7 and 8, but usually 1, 2, and 8 is where your executives, or 7 and 8 are where your executives sit. Here in the 3, 4, 5, and 6, that's where your learning and development professionals. That's what you care about there. The problem is you have to have all of it to really understand how well are we doing, and then what is the purpose for what we want to do next. And so here in this session, we're really going to talk about that evaluation stage, which then can help you lead to, well, we have this feedback and this evaluation. Well, what are our goals coming up? What do we actually want to achieve, and really align, right, what we're doing in learning and development with the overall goals of the organization. That's how you start to bridge that gap with the leadership team to show them the value of organizational learning. They need to see numbers. This used to drive me insane. I just wanted everyone to have this heart for learning like I did. And why are you not all strengths finder learners? That is my top strength, in case you're curious. It has been every single time I have taken it throughout the lab. I've taken it 3 times throughout the course of my 15+ year career in this space. And learner is always at the top. I had a hard time in the beginning understanding why the executive team why don't you just get it? Don't you see my passion for this? Don't you see why it is that I think it's important? They need to see the numbers. And that's where the evaluation stage comes in. So This was our first attempt at the course quality matrix to understand where do we go next. And so this is kind of a busy slide, so I'm going to walk you through this table. Over here on the left-hand side, you've got the quality indicators that we, myself and our VP of our product team came up with. And we looked at what are the things that are going to tell us whether or not the course and the materials and the entire experience is a solid one. What are those components that we're trying to hit? At the top, you see accessibility. This is a requirement. This is something that we find valuable. And so we put that at the top. Templated. This means, do the course materials follow some sort of template that graduate school uses? And so think learning design standards that you might have, the colors, the images, all of those types of things. Remember how I told you we had a distributed team? Each different domain used a different template. As you can imagine, for a centralized team, that's really difficult to keep up with it. Student feedback, we've got that all the time. The other thing that we also had at that particular time was the time since the last review. We maintain a lot of great records, and you probably do too, about the last time that you reviewed a training course or when that material was reviewed. But the pieces that we didn't have at the time were ease of use. And so, meaning the materials, had we integrated a lot of different types of technology? Was the course outlined well? Did it flow really well? The datedness of the content, right? And so sometimes we think that leadership content, oh, we're talking about communication skills. Well, communication is great, and we need to think about audience and purpose, and that's all we need to do. Well, but remember, the examples that you might include for better communication is going to change over time. So that's what I'm talking about when I talk datedness of the content, or if there are regulation updates. So we all know, and you all mentioned in our first poll, that there are tons of updates that occur from government regulations going out that you need to make sure that your teams understand. Graduate school does the exact same thing with our courses. Annual budget updates, annual benefit updates, annual travel updates. All of those things need to be included in your training, but that's so hard. DEI scores. We could talk for weeks upon what this actually means, and how our courses could be improved from a DEI perspective. I do not have DEIA because notice that I pulled out accessibility, as it is a key thing that we want to make sure that we have in all of our courses immediately. And then impact on job performance. That component, and you all are aware of Kirkpatrick's model, but it is difficult for an external vendor to truly understand the impact of our training courses on job performance without a lot of surveys of our clients and how we are. This is something we're really working on at graduate school, but I would assume that you all, that is something that you might have a better understanding of, maybe from the managers that you're working with, and the employees who are coming to your training. So we split this into impact, effort to know, and the cost to fix it, based on where we were at this time, which was about, let's see, we are now in the month of June. So maybe this was last fall. And so the impact would be, if we knew this information, what kind of impact would it have on the course? The effort to know means how much effort and how manual of an effort would it take for us to know this information? You see, completed, because we had data on accessibility, templating, student feedback already, and the time since last review, because of the records that my team already maintains. But the rest of this was going to be really manual. Do we really want to look at every single course? Do we want to have one person go through and review this stuff? And then if it's broken, or broken is the wrong term, right? But if there is something that needs to be adjusted, how much does it cost to fix it? Well, we all know if you have inaccessible course materials, depending upon the level of accessibility or level of inaccessibility, that can be a heavily manual effort to fix, which is why we just do it as table stakes at graduate school. Student feedback. When we get really poor feedback, there may be a lot of money to go in to fix that, depending upon what those things are. But these are the components that we looked at to try to get to our quality indicator. So what I want you to do now is, I've listed some quality indicators that we have thought about, but I want you to start to think about how you can develop your own quality metrics. I believe wholeheartedly that some of these are easier to know than others. And so I want you to think about, what do you have today? And so you're going to share that with me in just a second. I've got another poll that I'm going to pop up into Slido, but start to think about, what are the quality metrics by which you can utilize to start to assess your current training materials? Training program overall could be one single course. I want you to have something in mind that you're looking to improve upon, or something. You can't always go big. I run a department. We started big. We started, what do we have today? We've got 300 courses. I have this data. I have this information. We started big. But we ended up narrowing down, and I'll talk to you about that in just a second. But for you, what data do you have available today? Go ahead and open up that Slido again. For those who have joined since the last time that we posted, slido.com, and there's your number to insert, or you can just quick scan that QR code with your phone. See Chris in the chat. Metrics on Kirkpatrick 3 to 4, huge hurdle. Surveys only hit on a percentage of completers and tend toward perceived satisfaction rather than work impact. XAPI has been a technical nightmare. Yep. Anecdotal evidence is highly varied, can't be used to systematically. Really interested to see how you address that problem. Chris, I would love to tell you there's a magical answer. There's not. But I have some ideas. So yes, let's keep talking about it. There is not a magical answer for Kirkpatrick's 3 and 4. It is something that graduate school will see while folks are putting information in here right now. From a work impact, you have to assess what they're actually doing in change in behavior or change in organizational goals. I think the hardest part in that, and doing it after the fact, is whether or not you establish the goal for the training ahead of time. So we talked about before, and I'll pull up, let's see. You pull up Joe's experience network while others are still completing the poll. Remember how I said, in order to define that purpose and vision for what it is we're actually trying to accomplish with an experience, with a training experience itself, if that is not articulated well at the beginning, I don't know that you're going to get a great evaluation at the end, because we don't even know what we're trying to do. A lot of times we just jump into, hey, can you go train some project managers? They need to learn to manage projects. Well, are they new project managers? Are we launching a new way we manage projects? Is there an issue that's come up? All of those questions in that analysis phase, right, of ADDIE, that's what we're trying to get here, right, up here. This is just ADDIE expanded. But if those things are not articulated well, I think it's really difficult to get a solid evaluation at the end. Veronica, beginning with the end in mind, every designer should have that on a Post-it note on their wall. Really, I think every profession should. What are we trying to accomplish here? What is the ultimate goal that we're trying to get to? And then that's how we can base our evaluation off of it. You have to have the executive team or your leadership team involved in that conversation. And ideally, you've got learning and development at the table somewhere, even if it's your chief learning officer at the table, having those conversations. Hopefully, they at least have a seat at the table, as I mentioned, to really look at, okay, what are we trying to achieve here? Is this and these are key questions to ask. Both are okay, but they're questions to ask. Are we looking for a check the box training or a behavior change? Those questions will help you evaluate whether or not you achieved it. If it's a check the box training, everybody needs to go through IT security training. Well, cool, we can put you through IT security training and check that box. Is it going to be impactful? I don't know. Maybe we need to look to see how many people actually clicked on spam messages. And that's the evaluator to determine, was there a decrease in the people who clicked on the wrong message as part of that IT training? Those are the things that we need to talk about with the leadership team before we launch big training initiatives, or before we launch any training initiative. What is the purpose? Lots of good conversation here. I'm going to go ahead and pull back up our survey, and I'll hit the chat box in just a minute. But data that you guys have available today. Everybody's got a student evaluation usually, or some type of survey. That's fantastic. Where I lost my mouse. There we go. And so student evaluations, delivery methods, assessments. This is fantastic. Instructor feedback, I think, is really important. If you are not the actual deliverer of the training, having your instructors and your subject matter experts provide that feedback is huge. Date of last update and whether or not it's successful. So these are some things that you all have, but thinking about what data do you actually want to use? I'm going to go to the chat box to see where we're at. Not personally been a part of a team where the learning and goal were unknown. I have not personally been a part of any team where the learning goals and specific were unknown. Laura, kudos to the fact that you have never had that experience. That's fantastic that you have always known what the goal is. I think that that's huge. And I'm jealous that you've been part of a team, never been a part of that kind of team. Communication, knowing the outcomes is necessary. Denise, thank you very much for your feedback there. Team taught a course on job skill. Their programs were inspected every year. We use the results of these inspections prior and after to see if it elevated their skills. Aaron, that's a great example. It can be done and it can be relatively simple. It just depends on how the training is set up to begin with. So thank you all for your feedback there and your comments. There we go. So let's talk so this is the data you might have today to get you all thinking about, there are other pieces aside from here. So let's take a look at some other course quality elements. So when I say courses, I also mean training programs overall. So not just an individual course, but think about the content design. Do you have relevant, accurate, current content? Are they consistent with learning goals? I'm going to continue to go back to Laura's comment and be super jealous that she's been on a team that they always knew what the goals were. That's huge. That is a sign of a solid leader. That is a sign of a mature team that knows where they're going and they know what they're doing. Looking at delivery methods. Are the instructional techniques that we're using in that training actually applicable for what type of learning we're hoping to give? In this session, this webinar, it was fantastic to deliver it at TOC because I could see everybody's face. I could walk up and down. You could see if people were writing, all of those types of things. I knew if folks were engaged. I had to alter that when we do it virtually, right? And so you have to have more engagement tools to make sure that folks are paying attention. You all are in the chat box. You are engaging in Zoom. This is massive. There are other tools in a virtual space that you can use in terms of give me a thumbs up if you are liking this session. I can allow you to draw on the board. There's some other engagement pieces. We're going to use a tool called Padlet at the end of this to really collect some more feedback from you all. But thinking about whether or not the types of delivery methods you're utilizing are actually contributing to the course quality or not. That is something to think about. Learner experience. So we've talked about accessibility already. That should be table stakes if at all possible, although it is really challenging to do. Luckily, YouTube, TikTok, Insta have made it super easy to create videos and they already have closed captions on them. Are they always accurate? No. And I'm covering my eyes because sometimes the captions that come up are not always great. I've put the captions on that I'm talking through. This is in PowerPoint that you should be seeing coming up on the screen so that you can read as I'm talking. It's a little bit distracting if you're not used to doing it, to have that up, but it can be really helpful for those in the room to be able to see the words that are actually being spoken. But that learner experience, are you meeting their expectations? And then finally, assessment strategies. What does assessment mean for the particular type of course that you're delivering or the program that you're delivering? Are we sending them a little 5-question didactic quiz, a little knowledge check? Did they actually walk away with knowledge? Is the assessment an authentic one where if they're going to attend a training for project managers, I'm going to call out what some of you might feel is a bold statement here, but they sure better walk away with a project plan or at least the understanding of how to create one. The best thing would be to actually do the project plan in the training with them. And the assessment is, did they walk away with a completed project plan? But thinking about your assessment strategies and are they meeting the needs of the actual courses that you're creating? All right. Nothing else. I prefer the learning transfer evaluation method over Kirkpatrick model. Veronica, agreed. So let's dig into let's go back to graduate school's actual quality metrics in our matrix. So I told you that we had accessibility, templated, student feedback, and time since last review. We already had those things, so we started there. But we really wanted to get the rest of this. And so we decided to survey our instructors. Graduate school has a huge pool of instructors, and it's actually our bread and butter about how these courses come to life, because the instructors have such vast experience in the federal government that they're able to bring these courses to life and not just words on a page. And so we surveyed them. So I put together a survey. We actually have a really great institutional assessment team that can help in creating surveys. If you are not comfortable creating your own survey to really ask the questions that are going to get you the data, I would invite you to take some sort of course or do some research on how to get quality feedback, because the quality of your survey will determine the types of metrics that you're actually going to get back. So let's take a look at this is our actual course quality matrix and how those components of the survey played into it. And so you're seeing on the screen that we've got a federal budgeting course, introduction to federal budgeting. There are 3 lines here because I have 3 separate instructors provide data on, complete the survey on this particular course. These are the different buckets of items of which we are assessing. And then I'm going to expand each one of these to show you the questions that pulled into here. But the reason that I want to show you this in particular is it's difficult for the learning and development teams to be able to create a survey and then interpret the data themselves, unless you are the one who is doing the delivery and you are the subject matter expert. P.S. I run my family budget. I have no idea about the federal budgeting system. I know that it causes all sorts of complexities around all of your agencies, but I am not a subject matter expert here. So I have no ability to assess whether or not the feedback that our instructors provided is accurate or valuable. But we have a product director in charge of our financial management domain. And so she is the one that takes this information and looks to see, okay, we're across the board on some of these, we're kind of matching, and some of these, this makes sense to me. So what I did was we collected it all in learning design, and then I put it in a digestible format for our product folks to be able to digest. So DEI score, we're going to open that up first. These are the questions that are here. And again, if you didn't scan my QR code at the beginning of the session, I'll have it up at the end. You do not need to take these notes. I provide these slides. You can take these direct questions and use them. These are not like Heather Zink or graduate school created questions. These are questions to assess the DEI score of our materials. Now, you can see that amongst these 3 different instructors, they have very different opinions. So it is not up to me as the Senior Director for Learning Design to make the decision as to whether or not we need to improve the DEI components of this course. It is up to our Product Director for Financial Management to assess this information. But now at least she has some data to determine what to do next. Let's go next. So the next one is the currency of the content. So this is, you can see in here, examples and case studies used are current industry practices. We're pretty on point there. You've got here references and citations used in the course materials are up to date. There's something wonky here. Why is there a 1 here and then 4 and 5? There could be a lot of different reasons, but this is something that our product director is going to want to look into. Course content is informed by research and field development. We're pretty on point here. And then the course aligns with current industry standards. 2 out of 3 isn't bad. 3 is in the middle range. And so we're looking okay here. We know that the budget courses need to be updated every year. So there should be probably some type of update happening to that course every year. But looking at this feedback in terms of content currency may also have been the last time this instructor taught that course. Another matrix item is the ease of use. And so we've got pretty consistent scores here. 4s and 5s are good. In the ease of use of the actual materials, this deals with the instructions are clear, easy to incorporate different activities, technologies used well, the course is the right length, but these are more how well are the materials utilized. Integration of regulatory updates and a flexibility score. So we look at this in sort of two different ways, in the fact that have we designed this course to where when there is an update needed based on some sort of regulatory update, budget courses and specifically, we've got an annual budget. If that annual budget changes, because we want to provide up-to-date examples, is it easy to update that course? The other example is, or the other component of this is this course content able to serve other audiences? This federal budgeting course, you're not going to get a 5 there, because do other levels of government, meaning state and local, or audiences serving the federal government, could this course be utilized there? In some courses where you talk about federal auditing, that's going to get a really low score, right? Because it's a federal auditing course. But federal budgeting could be informative there. So these are just different ways to ask questions based on the types of information or goals that you have. As a learning design team at graduate school, I have a need to know whether or not these courses are flexible enough to offer, if it's a 5-day course that we've developed and an agency comes to me and says, let's see right here, and an agency comes to me and says, Heather, I don't have 5 days to send my people. Can we do this in 10 half days? Can we do this over a month? To be able to be really flexible in how we deliver that course. Those are the types of things I need to know. When a rapid regulatory shift comes, or a brand new law came out, there were some things related to our human resources domain that happened earlier this spring that caused us to need to shift what we were working on in that domain and update some other courses based on a law that was, I wish I could tell you what it was. Again, not the subject matter expert, just the designer. But we needed to be able to shift because of how those courses were designed. Super easy to do that. And so that's the type of data that you want to be thinking about as you are developing your own quality matrix. So this pulls it back in together. And so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to kind of summarize where we are, and then I'm going to give you about 5 minutes because we're doing really well on time here. And I'm going to put up a timer because I want you to sit and think. The whole purpose of coming to professional development is that you walk away with something. And so I want you to think about what's the data you have, what are the quality metrics you want to utilize. If you were to start your own quality metrics or quality matrix, what would it look like? Remember that graduate schools looks like this. We've got course information here over on the left-hand side. Our decision point is right here. Keep, retire, refresh. This is done on an annual basis. You may need to look at things on a quarterly basis or a biannual basis. These are our actual quality scores. We look at the score of 1 to 5 was what I had mentioned previously, right? Where we did, these were all Likert scale questions. So strongly disagree all the way to strongly agree. And then we've got student feedback here. So this is just thinking about what graduate school has. And so I'm going to pop up here a timer for 5 minutes. And I want you to spend a little time creating your own quality metrics. I'm going to move my timer down a little bit. So this is just course information for you. Let's go ahead and see if it'll let me decrease. There we go. So you all can see all these components, but we've got about a little less than 5 minutes now. Sit and think about it. If you want to pop on mic or you want to put something in the chat box to have a conversation, happy to do that. But I want you to spend 5 minutes here really digging into your own quality metrics. I see Laura in the chat. Maybe organizational training didn't require complex learning goals. That could be the case. Yep. Do not be embarrassed by any means. I would add, though, that the learning goals or objectives were clear. Our evaluations have only been at 1 and 2, which most are from the start. Clarity goals, looking at basic, less application, adoption, and behavior. Gotcha. That makes sense. We're still all super jealous that you had all of those to begin with, because not even all organizations have that. So I appreciate your clarity. Do not feel embarrassed by any means. I appreciate your willingness to share. Again, these are not the only components of a quality course. These are the ones that we have utilized to get you started on. You may have other course quality elements related specifically to the different types of delivery. Those are things that I'd like to start to look at graduate school a little bit more. How can we turn some of our instructor-led courses into more on-demand type of courses or micro-learning elements? Is there an opportunity to change the delivery model from a instructor-led course to a virtual reality scenario? Do we need to add gamification? That could be something that you include. And now I'm going to be quiet so you can think.
Heather, could you move your timer down just a little bit? I want to see the words behind. Oh, there's nothing there. Okay.
All righty. Our time is up for this particular one. I hope you got a little bit of time there. My apologies for taking up some of your time in my own talking. I should have stopped immediately, but I appreciate that you all have the time to. I appreciate you all coming to this session because, and we're not done yet, but I appreciate you coming to this session because it shows that you are interested in making an impact and thinking about course evaluation and your training program evaluation in a different way. So I'm hoping that you walk away with some of those quality metrics in order for you to just make an impact on your organization itself. And I think that that really leads us into what this type of development for yourself and what it's going to show for you as a professional. And so feeling the love was the theme of the annual institute this year. And so if you are able to, as a learning and development professional, really show your value, and we talked about that at the beginning, right? There were some folks who posted one of the challenges is getting a seat at the table and recognizing the value that organizational learning can have on an organization. We know that you are all leaders here. You are all leaders in your organization, whether or not you have that title or not, because you have the expertise to evaluate training programs and just to evaluate situations. It's not just developing training, it's why do you need it? We need to improve skills. We need to improve on an initiative. We need to grow new managers. We need to retain employees. There is some sort of challenge that you're facing at your organization. Having some sort of framework for how you demonstrate your leadership skills to be able to share that with your leaders in your department, in your agency, is going to demonstrate the value of organizational learning. Really utilizing your skills and showing the value of your role in your department is going to help make your department more well known, and then maybe even throw some more money towards it so that you can do more things, or give you another tool, or send you to a conference to learn something about it. But utilizing this course quality matrix, coming up with something to find value to demonstrate to your leadership team, it's really optimizing your role. And we're obviously measuring value, having that type of data, that's the V for value, having this data to make decisions. This is what every CEO wants to see, or every chief of a department, or every executive wants to be able to see. What is the data behind it? I have a leader right now who it is know your numbers. That is what his philosophy is. And in the beginning, again, it used to drive me crazy because it was, do we really just care about the numbers and not just the humans? Well, yes, but the numbers show what's happening with the humans. So that is where the value comes. Being able to demonstrate, I had 85% of my staff attend this session. I had an improvement of 5% attendance over last year. We improved we decreased our IT security issues by 15%. Showing that value is going to continue to allow you to have the impact and build the learning to improve the human lives. And then finally, E is engaging with technologies. This is something where I want you to know that you don't have to have the best technology in the world to collect this information. You don't need to know Power BI. You don't need to know SQL. You don't need to know any types of fancy tools in order to collect this information. Basic spreadsheet. Most of you probably have Microsoft. Majority of you probably don't have access to Google Sheets, but it will do the same thing. But you have an access to a calculator to be able to tally up information. You can do this with very rudimentary technology, but really showing that your ability to capture information, put it in front of others to make decisions about your training courses, whether or not they're successful or not, is going to improve the lives of those you are trying to change. But it's also going to help really improve your workload, which was my ultimate goal for my team. We only have 7. We have 300 courses. That's not enough people, in case you're curious, to do all of that work all the time. We can't touch 300 courses in a year. And so how do we spread that out? How do I prioritize? What do we do with it? But being able to engage with those technologies is really going to help you. So let's look here in the chat. So many need an update. This is great. Sometimes the bottom line is simple. They don't know what they don't know, and showing them the value. That is absolutely a mantra that I have led with myself, is assuming that others do not know. Because in the beginning of your careers, I think that sometimes you think that others, again, remember I told you how I was a learner, and why doesn't everybody want to be a learner? And why aren't they excited about just attending training? I eat this stuff up, even a bad webinar. I eat it up. I want to see it. I want to take information. I want to learn as much as I can. I have learned, again, learning. I have learned that not everyone feels that way. And my husband and my kids laugh at me because I am just what I call a chronic or serial learner. Started a master's degree in the middle of the pandemic. Goal is still to have a doctorate before my career is ended. But I have that innate ability. But that is my skill. That is my strength to share. And I would argue that the majority of you have that as well. So you need to share that with others so that they can see it. Shanri, thank you for posting that link. Let's see, Heather, what was your outcome implementing this model? How many courses did you evaluate with this? How do you feel about triaging? Responded to the adoption of the model? That is a fantastic situation, or a fantastic question, and it will, this will be the final component. This is how I was going to leave you with today, and allow you all to start asking some more questions, but really thinking about how to apply this to the real world scenario. So Christopher, it's a great question. We have had this model in place for less than a year. I started collecting this data about 6 months ago or so. The product directors themselves are loving it. And they are loving it because it takes all of this data that used to live in about 14 places and puts it in one spot. We have not got, because this is less than a year, we have not gotten to the keep, retire, refresh phase, but I have some product directors who are using this on a quarterly basis because the data in their end of quarter surveys they're seeing is changing a little bit. And so they're looking at groups of courses each quarter. So huge wins there. So from an adoption standpoint, I've got, let's see, 5 product directors who are using this tool. And I have 3 of them that are using it on a regular basis as we get more time, or as we make quarterly plans as to what types of updates and things we're going to do. And so ideally there's a large yearly plan that gets done, but right now we're kind of on that quarterly cycle, and they're using that data there. The 2 that are not, it more has to do with the fact that they are digging into that instructor feedback heavily. And they're really looking at that feedback to determine, because their course libraries are so large, as to how they might make improvements. So it's just taking them longer to do it. They all appreciate that it's there. I think having this information, we are also a very data-driven organization that wants to make decisions. And obviously we are a revenue generating institution. So you want to generate more revenue. Well, how does this contribute or not? I don't want to like not call that out in the fact that we are a vendor that sells training. So they need to determine how to do that. But from a quality standpoint, it has improved my teams. Just morale and understanding, and being able to even utilize this course quality information in the matrix when they have conversations with subject matter experts by which the product director has decided this course needs to be updated. So we get a subject matter expert in, learning designers working with them. They have that data to show that subject matter expert if they had not participated in it. So having that information is really, really valuable for them. Thanks for that question, Christopher. All right. Measure training, good conversations. Has it helped rewrite some of the SOPs and instructional design course information? Yes, it has. Because when we're looking at instructional systems design and how we actually design a course, one of the things that my learning designers brought up at the beginning of our time before, like I said, I started 2 years ago, was, Heather, we don't have any data internally to show us. And when I say internally, I mean within the learning design team, to show us whether or not this course actually needs to, or what are the challenges that they're facing. It was all heavily, prior to the learning design team, it was heavily driven by subject matter experts. And so that was one of the challenges, right, that we talked about before, the fact that if you have a subject matter expert building something, they're really only looking from their own perspective. They're not looking from other perspectives. And so within our course design process now, when we have a course that is up for redesign, we are looking at that data. I will be honest with you and tell you that all 300 courses do not have this information in it. I'm thinking about how many courses, because I feel like we had about 50% of our courses. I think it was 100. I hate saying it this specifically, but I think we had 148 courses that received instructor feedback. So I was able to add that information into the matrix. And so of those 300 plus courses in the library, half of them have all of this data on them. And so we started with what we had and we utilized what we knew. And the other thing that happens is as other courses that don't have this data on them, the instructors know as they're teaching them that we're looking at this. And so they're providing anecdotal feedback anyway, even if they didn't complete that survey at the beginning of the year. So definitely has helped in improving there. Perfect. So I hope that you will take some time, and I know that this webinar was scheduled for about 90 minutes, that you will take some time and really apply this to a real world scenario. Some of you are going to have to drop, and I think that's okay. I want to make sure that before you go, that you have the handout. If you missed that in the beginning, that you have a copy of the slides. That document there, again, is for you to scan and take the slides away with you. I am also going to put up one more link. Here we go. Get rid of Joe. Copy. And this will also be in the recording. So those of you who are in the recording will be able to participate here. This is a Padlet. And for those of you who have never used Padlet, you just click on the plus sign. You're going to click on the link that's in the chat box. And I think I just sent that to one person privately. So hang on. Let me send it to everyone. There we go. And when you click on that link, it should open up in your browser. You can put it on your phone. And you are going to click on the plus sign here. If there is an idea you're going to implement, you want to insert it here. The data you still might need to collect, or what questions do you still have after attending this session? Again, I'm here until half past the hour. I would love to answer questions or talk specifically about challenges that you have. I wanted to allow plenty of that time. But if you've got some things that you want to share here or you want to follow up on later, would love to hear what you've got going on there. I think I can also share a QR code in case you can scan from your phone. There we go. So on the screen, you should see a QR code. That's a link to that Padlet. Just to provide some feedback for me on this session, the TOC, to see what questions you have, if there's something else we can dig deeper into another session or follow up afterwards. And then we got some comments in chat. Thinking about the course quality matrix, I added a metric for integrating activities, information designed for all learner types. I think it aligns to visual imagery item. Your question, is the student feedback and instructor feedback items aggregated scores taken from other data collection or more for tracking we collect student feedback? That's a great question, Laura. It is aggregated from another survey. So the student feedback that we collect, the only question that I'm pulling into this survey is our net promoter score. Would you recommend this course, or would you recommend graduate school after taking this course? That's the only piece that I'm pulling into the course quality matrix specifically. But when we do our actual course refreshes or course designs, one of the components that the instructional designers look at, as well as the subject matter experts, is the actual student feedback for that course itself. And then the instructor feedback component is, do we have instructor feedback from these surveys? And as I mentioned, we had 148 different courses. I think I know I had 75 instructors respond to that survey, which was huge. I mean, vast feedback, which was huge. So that's the instructor feedback component. Is there a link for the PowerPoint? Yes, it's on.
And Heather, I will actually send it out too. So
Oh, perfect.
An email from TOC with the link and the slides and the recording.
Slides and all the things. Thank you. Yep. There's a link in the chat box too. And at the bottom of that, that's where you'll find the slides. Friends, my contact information for LinkedIn and a couple other resources in there as well. let's see, there's our QR code. We've got a couple others. Good deal. Finalize the matrix. Yep. Potentially learn skills. I need to digest. Yeah, this was a lot of information. Thank you everyone for coming. Again, I'm happy to stick around and answer as many questions as y'all have. I'm going to go ahead and put up my contact information one more time. Find me on LinkedIn. Would love to connect with you. Would love to have a conversation. Again, QR code there, and then Amy will make sure that we get the slides and everything sent out for the webinar. But great audience. I appreciate everything. Have a great week.